Item number 5, deliberate and consider possible approval of creating 2 temporary part-time positions in the Cooke County Attorney's Office to temporarily replace 1 full-time and budget amendment for same. Ed, can you brief us?
And just for the record on our, I don't want you to get your tape off, it's item 7 on my agenda.
Same.
Okay. You drew it off a little bit?
I guess it is. Let me move it up here. Yep, it is.
Okay, so we have a full-time employee who is going to work in a family business, and that full-time employee is able to work part-time to train another employee. So what I would do is I would bring someone in on a part-time basis, have the present employee on a part-time basis, let them train, and then convert that back to a full-time position. But this gives me the opportunity to keep everybody in place. Any questions?
Doesn't change anything on the money line, does it?
No, actually, it saves money for a short period of time.
I'm fine with it. I'll make a motion we approve.
Have a motion to approve the 2 part-time positions in the County Attorney Office by Commissioner Clement.
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner R. Agenda item number 7. Snug.
Sorry.
Any further discussion?
You're not calling me Hollowell anymore, are you?
No. I'm
Not
sorry.
yet. Not yet.
Yeah, I'm still learning the names of the people on the court here, but we're getting to it. All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Agenda item number 7 is approved. Item number 8, deliberate and consider possible approval of hiring temporary employees for IT for the upgrade of computers to Office 365. Darrell with us? Can you give us a quick briefing on what you're doing?
IT has a project coming up to upgrade all the county computers to Office 365 to get us off the old version that we're on. That's about 200 computers, and we're requesting 2 temporary employees for about 5 weeks at a total cost of $2,584 to help us get that project done quicker. We believe having some extra hands will get us through that project and not take the entire IT department away from normal everyday troubleshooting tasks.
So I'm assuming that if you had to do it on overtime, it would be more expensive than the $2,500 for the 2 part-time?
I believe so, and it's pretty rare that we have any projects where we actually can get some assistance. Most of our tasks are pretty specialized where we have to go and troubleshoot a thing that you just can't bring somebody in and say, troubleshoot this for me. So this is an opportunity to kind of speed that project up by just getting some help.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Shelley's got a
Hang on
question.
a second,
I didn't see
Shelley.
her, sorry.
There's no budget amendment attached. How you gonna pay for it?
So we're going to need to come back and make a budget amendment next court.
I'll take care of that.
So we'll take no action on item number 8 at this point.
Thank you.
Item number 9, deliberate and consider possible approval of preliminary plat for Boyd subdivision, Phase 2 in Precinct 3. Commissioner R.
This subdivision that's right west of Era. We've gotten our group to go over it with their company, and the changes are being made, and we're going to say that we're ready to go. So I make the motion that we accept it.
I have a motion to accept the Boyd subdivision Phase 2 plat change, item number 9 on the agenda.
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Clement. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 9, preliminary plat for Boyd subdivision Phase 2 is approved. It is 10:09. We'll open up public hearing. Proposed creation of an emergency service district to be known as Cooke County Emergency Service District Number 1. We have 17 people on the agenda to speak to this on the public hearing. So we're going to limit each one of you to 3 minutes. We're going to go a little bit over the 30 minutes, but we can't go hour and a half. So the first person that we have on the agenda is Bob Smith.
Have them do the presentation on the actual agenda item.
Yeah, we probably should do that.
You know, well.
Yeah, probably.
Hang on a minute if you would, Bob. So,
I didn't know if we should have the presentation from the ESD people now, or when
let's
we
do
get
it.
to the actual.
so let's go ahead and let the ESD people go first, and so that way everybody has a understanding of exactly what we're speaking to.
Your Honor, Commissioners, I'm Dr. Dennis Engels, retired Army Colonel and formerly licensed professional counselor, retired. And our attorney, Lynn Switzer, is in another courtroom and could not get out of a court appearance this morning.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Denny. Clock hasn't started. Thank you, sir.
Do we need to clock him since he's the presentation?
Oh, no, we don't. That's right. That's good. We'll let him go. Okay, go ahead, Denny.
And we also have with us today Attorney Ken Campbell from Austin, who is an expert in emergency services districts and has an incredible amount of knowledge. And he's right here, should there be any questions. We furnished the court with a PowerPoint document that pretty much sums up the key issues to be addressed. In a nutshell, the Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department has come a long way, starting with nothing in 2012, absolutely nothing, no buildings, no anything, and actually rigging up other equipment to serve as fire equipment from the start. We've come a long way. And over the years, the number of emergency calls were essentially fire and rescue, like almost all volunteer fire departments. And the number of calls has continued to increase. And unfortunately, in the past 4 years, while the number of calls has increased, the number of donors has decreased. We depend on donations and grants for some 90+% of our income, and we last year had 502 calls, and the personnel side of it last year, when we started this process 3 years ago, 4 people were making some 80% of the calls. Last year we had 2 people, one of whom made 305 of those 502 calls, another of whom made 230 some calls, and after that it drops down pretty radically. So I don't have to tell you what kind of stress that puts our board and our citizenry under. And we've looked for, additionally, we don't have sufficient funding, and the funding we have is not regular and predictable. Consequently, we can't budget. Just a recent example, two instances where our financial straits were displayed. In March, we were bidding on a 10-year-old fire engine, 10 years old. And we figured we'd get 10 years of life out of that. And the bidding just kept accelerating. When it got to $250,000, as fast as we bid, another bid came in, and it just kept, and so we had to stop because we don't have the line of credit to say that we can pay for something more than that. Never mind that with 10 years expected, we're talking $25,000 a year out of that vehicle. And we also were filling out a FEMA grant to hire firefighters, and they would pay for everything the first year. However, you have to hire, these firefighters have to have full pay plus all benefits. Well, by the third and fourth years of that grant, we're starting to get into $100,000+ per firefighter that we don't have, and we can't project income sufficiently to do it. So we had to abandon that grant application. So essentially, what we're here for today is to ask, we believe we've met all the criteria of the Health and Safety Code, and we're here to ask for an election. Just in response to the 340 people who signed our petition, the 15 speakers who spoke in favor, 15 residents who spoke in favor in December at that hearing, and all those who are signed up today to speak in support. And at the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, we say justice for all. And so as you look at all the particulars of the law, I'd ask you to think also that justice really takes in the spirit and the letter of the law, and we believe we've really met the spirit and the letter, and we would ask just that we be allowed to hold an election. Mr. Campbell can give all kinds of information for any questions you might have about an emergency services district, what it can and can't do, what it does. He has incredible experience over the last 30-some years dealing with emergency services districts. And the benefits to the, you will appoint actually, who runs the ESD? You would be asked to appoint commissioners who will oversee the ESD and serve 2-year terms. And so therefore, in the vetting and all, we would hope that you would get people who you can trust and who will be good stewards. And the benefits to the residents, I think, will be improved service, quicker response time, and one point also, when our fire and rescue personnel show up really quickly on calls, and we missed one call, as I understand it, 4 years ago. We make 100% of the calls, and every time our fire and rescue group shows up, if it's a medical event, there's a good likelihood they can call off an ambulance if it isn't needed, if they're able to handle it all by itself. Consequently, we're something of an ambulance multiplier. And the benefits for residents are listed on the PowerPoint. And we have the second highest call volume in the county, second only to Valley View Fire Department, Fire and Rescue, who are here. And we have reached consensus with each of the neighboring fire departments as to boundaries for this proposed emergency services district. And I think by now you're all familiar with the kinds of costs you're up against. $600,000 for a fire engine. We don't own a facility. We currently lease the fire station. We don't have any land either. And we lease the fire station we have for $1 a year. Our lease expires in 2023, and unfortunately, our building is situated right at the gateway to 52 acres that the Lake Kiowa Property Owners Association owns, and consequently, the fact that that's the gateway and the one narrow spot where they can go into those 52 acres puts us in modest jeopardy. We don't know. We're hopeful that they'll continue to be supportive, but it's another issue, and it's one of those things we just can't say for sure. And failure to hold an election does risk the eventual possible likelihood, really, of missed calls, that sort of thing. And we are not asking you to approve an ESD only to allow an election. And I'll stop right there and ask if you have any questions. And Mr. Campbell is also signed up as a speaker and could address any questions that you have of us.
You guys have any questions?
I don't.
What services will you guys be providing?
Well, we will continue to do fire and rescue.
Okay.
And in the event that we could have paid staff, we could also do a great deal more fire inspections and fire safety kinds of events. We do some of that already with the schools and that sort of thing, but we could enhance and amplify all of those. And our readiness in terms of logistics and equipment and that sort of thing would be much more readily handled where there's somebody available for 40 hours of the week or something during those peak call times.
Do you plan to keep the fire station where you currently have it?
That's our plan right now, for sure, and we're hoping, we're confident that we'll get some kind of support from Lake Iowa should there be a need to build a new one or something, but we really, we know we have the lease till 2023 December, and after that, we're not, we don't know.
Okay.
I understand you're going to have some inspections. Are you going to require any permits?
I'll let Mr. Campbell speak to that. I really don't know about permits for...
May I, Judge? Sure. Commissioner, as a volunteer fire department, they can do inspections, just to make sure things are good, do fire safety pre-plans, but they're not allowed as a volunteer fire department to issue any permits or anything like that. If the ESD decides to adopt and enforce a fire code, which I doubt they will because of the water supply issues, it's tough to do, then they could adopt and enforce a fire code for Lake Kiowa, and y'all, you have a lot of tourist areas and areas that are built up and being built up. I've had many counties, especially smaller counties, that have lakes like y'all do and amenities like y'all do that have asked the ESD to adopt a fire code because they need to have that development controlled and safety taken care of, but that's really not on the radar to adopt a fire code because of water supply.
But once established as an ESD, they can require permits, they can fee, and they can inspect?
No. They can inspect for certain safety hazards if they have a commissioned law enforcement officer, but they are not allowed to issue permits except in the situation where they adopt a fire code, and they would adopt and enforce, and it would be just like any kind of building regulation in the city of Gainesville or the fire code in the city of Gainesville. I don't anticipate that that's what this district is going to do.
But they could. They would be authorized to go do that
Absolutely.
should they choose, and should they need revenues, that'd be an additional source of revenue.
And like I said, it's not a good idea, even in Travis County where I'm a commissioner, and just to give you some background, I've been a volunteer firefighter for 3 different districts and volunteer fire departments in the last 30 years. I'm assistant chief at Seabar Fire Department, Travis County ESD 10. I'm a commissioner there. I'm a lieutenant at Travis County ESD 9. We are a full-time fire department supplemented by volunteers. We previously were all volunteer. We've transitioned quite a bit. I honestly believe this is the neatest thing since sliced bread, and I know it's new to you guys, and nobody likes taxes, but this is a way for them to enhance and improve the services they're already giving to the citizens, and it's also a way for you to have more control because they have an electorate of 5 people, the 5 of you right there, so you have good control over them. Yes, they have 2-year terms. If the district is created, which it should go to a vote because it has met the requirements of the statute, and let the citizens decide what they want to do. But if it passes, y'all would appoint 5 commissioners to be that Board of Emergency Services commissioner for that interim between the date of the election and December 31st, 2021. Then you can reappoint those 5 or 5 others or whatever, and you would stagger the terms after that. 3 of them would have 2-year terms and 2 of them would have 1-year terms. And you can also remove them. They're just like county officers, just like y'all, so they can be removed under the law, the government code for public drunkenness or whatever. You have the ability to not reappoint them. So instead of waiting to get 50% plus 1 to get unelected, it really probably just takes 2 of you because 2 of you have your precincts in this area. And that's probably the ones who are going to be looked to help find the commissioners in that area. It is again, nobody likes taxes, but they certainly do like enhanced emergency services, and it would provide fire and first responder like it's doing now, and able to provide more training, and hopefully paid staff. That's really one of the big goals, is to have paid staff during the day when everybody else is off at work.
So you hit upon the ability to do code enforcement. That's my interpretation. What else can they do on the legal side?
Well, they've got a lot of powers. I've got a book I'll give you if you want to look at it. Commissioner Snuggs, I think, has it there.
I think I've read a lot of them, but just refresh.
They can do it. They can do a fire marshal. Of course, that person has to be trained to inspect, not to inspect, but to actually investigate the cause and origin of fires. If y'all don't have a county fire marshal, y'all cannot adopt a county fire code because you're not a county of 250,000 or greater. You might be adjacent to one that's 250,000 or greater. I do not think you are. You may be. Denton. Okay. So you could adopt a fire code yourself. And if you do, then the ESD would not have a fire code, and there's no intention of adopting a fire code. Again, the water supply is such a huge issue. You turn your barn into a wedding event center, you now got to sprinkle it, you got to have 30,000 gallons or more of water, you got to have a fire hydrant. That makes it really hard on the citizens, so that's usually not the way to go, especially in areas that aren't developed with a good water infrastructure. And if you don't mind, I'll just speak to the statute real quick. 775-014.
Do they have the right of eminent domain?
No, they do not.
I didn't think so.
ESDs do not have the right of eminent domain since they're appointed. The legislature didn't want to give them that power, which makes sense to me. It's very hard to find places sometimes, and you wish you had it, but it is what it is. But the other powers they have under 031, they can contract, they can do, they're a political subdivision just like y'all, just like the city of Gainesville. They have very limited powers, and they're really limited to a very specific service delivery, which is fire and EMS. And in this case, it's fire and EMS first responder, which is very important for your county, especially with the ambulances being sometimes pretty far away. You can get the firefighters there. It's very important in our county still to this day, even though we're much more developed out, especially in my area. But first responder is vital to what they do. But under 775-031, they can do a fire code, they can have a fire marshal, they can do inspections if they have a commissioned peace officer, and they can always do it voluntarily. So that's about all the powers they have. They obviously have the power to tax. They could do a sales tax, and that would be up to the citizens, because that has to be voted on too. And they can go up to 10 cents. I don't know what they're planning on doing at this point. When I do this, I always just say 10 cents, because that's what your opponents are going to say, even though you're not going to plan to do that. They also have to build up reserves the first couple of years, 25% or so, as the controller recommends. So they have something there in case a truck blows up and it's an uninsurable event or something like that.
Did you say the comptroller recommends that they create 25%
Any political subdivision
reserve?
should have 10 to 25% reserves. My counties along the coast and my ESDs along the coast have a 300 to 500% reserve, because it could all be in the bottom of the Gulf tomorrow. And so they wouldn't have any tax base or anything. So they want to make sure that they can continue to run until the tax base builds back up. Rockport's a perfect example, Fulton, on this last round with Harvey. So
Are they encouraged or required?
they're encouraged.
They're encouraged, they're not required to have.
No, none of y'all are. But that's what the controller recommends.
Get back to the earlier thing. Yeah, I understand they're called commissioners. That's going to be confusing. I understand that we get to appoint them. And on paper and in theory, that all sounds great. The commissioners will be appointing these people. But in reality, I know how that's going to work. We're going to be asked to appoint a certain number of people. And I don't know, it doesn't always work that well in history, the boards that we've appointed, how much control we really have over them. I don't think they want us to have a whole lot of control over them. I think the intention is for them to be independent.
And that's how it is structured, Commissioner.
Exactly. So the reality says this control backstop that we're going to be is going to be very difficult to maintain. Anyway.
Well, I guarantee you, if my county commissioner calls me up tomorrow, I've been a commissioner for almost 20 years now. If they call me up tomorrow, she calls me up tomorrow and says, Ken, we want to go another direction, I don't need the free job, folks. I'm ready to move on. I still get to be a firefighter. Okay? But the bottom line is if I'm not wanted, I don't need to be there. And I believe these people would listen to you guys. You would have more control than you could ever have if you were in Harris County, Orange County, Smith County, all these multiple county ESDs where they're elected. And then it's back to 50% plus one.
Firefighters are very independent people, which is a good thing. Volunteer firefighters are very independent people, which is a good thing. And I'm bragging on you now. That's a compliment, everybody. So, and that's what I'm getting to. They're very independent people. I understand what you're saying about your being a commissioner and what you would do if one of your commissioners would call you. But it doesn't always work quite that smooth.
Well, I would hope that y'all would not be appointing too many of the firefighters to the ESD board. I would hope that you would have citizens or ask the person to resign as a volunteer so that they don't, it's not a true legal conflict of interest, but to me, you could get mixed up on what cap you're wearing, and that's never a good thing. So I would recommend that you may have one firefighter on there, and I'm sure you have a lot of retired firefighters living around here, or firefighters who work somewhere else and understand the fire service, and that's always a benefit. But really what you need on there is people who know the community, know about accounting, know about the law, those kinds of things. Those are the people that you want to appoint.
Can they pay themselves?
They can, most don't. Bear County, some of their ESDs do. It's up to $7,500 a year. We talked about that last night with them. They have no intention of getting paid. We are not paid, and it's $50 a day for each day you actually work as a commissioner. So there's limited opportunities to get that, and I don't like the idea of taking, it used to be $3,000 per commissioner. I don't like the idea of taking $15,000 to $75,000 off the top. It's already going to cost probably about $60,000 for them to be a political subdivision of the state of Texas, pay the controller, not the controller, pay the tax assessor collector, pay Cooke County CAD, and pay their auditor, pay their attorney, all the things that you all have to do too. And they follow all the exact same rules you do, from truth and taxation all the way down to purchasing and everything else. It is a political subdivision of the state of Texas, and they are just like you. Now, you can always get independent people, but you can fix that within a year if the phone call doesn't work.
Earlier, you talked about the sales tax, and I assumed, well, I shouldn't assume anything. You said the people will decide. Now, you're talking about the people in that ESD would decide, just in that ESD, and the sales tax would just
only
come
apply.
from what gets sold inside that ESD?
Yes, sir. Taxable items that are subject to state sales and use tax.
ESD.
And that's in addition, though, to the ad valorem.
In addition to
The ad valorem.
ad valorem. Yes, sir, that is. And a lot of
So
us,
they can get 10 cents plus they can add, what's the limit on their sales tax? Is it
sales
like
tax is
quarter-
just like,
4%?
it's
Or
2%. Local, for
2%?
any local jurisdiction, it's 2%. They don't have any cities there. They're in the Gainesville ETJ on the west side a little bit, which is a good thing, because if you do create this ESD, that gives them the power to then contract possibly with Gainesville to cover some of those areas over there, in addition to the Indian Creek folks. So it's a pretty good setup that they've got there. And again, you got to understand I'm for this, but yes, they can do a sales tax. Does Cooke County have a sales tax? Do y'all have a 0.5% sales tax?
Yep.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay, so the most they could go is 1.5%. And they could lower their property taxes. I've had a number of ESDs adopt a sales tax, and we don't do it like y'all in the county or cities do, where you adopt a sales tax specifically to reduce the ad valorem tax, and it figures into your truth and taxation calculations. It's in addition to. And the point is that they can still, and many of mine have lowered their property tax rate, especially if they're in a high tourist area. That way, the person who comes down to the Green River or the Kamal or wherever, Lake Travis, and hurts themselves, at least when they went in to buy the first 12-pack before they hurt themselves, they put a little money into the kitty and offset what we're paying for a property tax, that we'd otherwise do it for free for them.
Back to the commissioners, did you say 7,500 per year or 75,000?
$7,500 per commissioner per year at $50 a day for each day actually worked as a commissioner. Those that do that, obviously, there would be 12 meetings because we're required to meet monthly. You may or may not make that with a quorum, so that would be $50 there. times 12, so $600. And then if they go to like safety, like the Texas Association of Counties, like y'all go to for their training, they're required to go to training. They have to have 6 hours of training. I think y'all, I can't remember what y'all had. It used to be 16 hours. And so they have to have all the training and everything too, just like y'all do. Have to do the Public Information Act training and the Open Records training and all that kind of stuff. But I can't see that it would get more than about $1,000 per commissioner, doing that. They're not going to be doing it every day.
One question that has come up in the past is feasibility of an ESD, and it's one of the criteria, and I wondered if you could speak to that for a moment.
Well, I can. Under 775-017, in my opinion, and this is ultimately up to y'all, they have met the requirements of the statute. They are feasible. It's my understanding that we're looking at 10 cents, and again, we'll go with the worst case scenario. It may not be that. At 10 cents, and they're functioning off of about, they bring in a pretty good amount of money, but they're functioning off of about $75,000 to $80,000 from what I've seen on the budget. And really, the big expense they would have is if they have to buy a station and some new equipment, that would all be debt service, but the personnel are going to be the big cost. And so that's what's most important. And I'm sorry, I lost track of your question, so can you bring me back, Commissioner?
No, I think you answered my.
Oh, on 775-017. It's feasible. And if you look at subsection B here, if it includes territory in a municipality or municipality's ETJ, that's where the feasibility comes in. Because you're going to have, when you have this election, the county clerk will have to code all the voters that are not in the ETJ but are in the proposed district, and the voters that are in the ETJ, code them separately because it's basically 2 elections in one. So Gainesville ETJ could vote not to be in the district and they would not be included, but the district passes overall, so the rest of the historic Indian Creek service area would be in there. Is it still feasible without that? And in this case it is, because it would drop down about 12% or so on the total possible revenue. So it'd still be around $500,000 to $600,000 a year, assuming they went to 10 cents and assuming they got all that right off the bat. And of course, they're subject to truth and taxation. So they've got the 3.5% increase before a voter approval election. So it's hard for them to go up, just like it's hard for y'all to go up, or any other political subdivision at this point.
So does that equate to the people in Gainesville's ETJ basically void their vote? How's that work? They voted against it.
Yes, sir.
So now they're exempt from it.
Yeah, they're not in it.
Are they included in the overall number at the polls?
Yes, they all get to vote. All I'm saying is it would be, it's one election, right? For or against the creation of the proposed Cooke County Emergency Services District Number 1 at a rate not to exceed the maximum rate under the Constitution, Article 3, Section 48E of the Texas Constitution. That's the ballot proposition. You just code them out. So, and we're fortunate here that we only have one ETJ. I've created ESDs that have 10 cities in them and 10 ETJs, so you're looking at 22, 23 sub-elections within that. And that's where you really have to make the feasibility determination. If this one, and this one say no, where are we? And will it be a rump state with $10,000 a year? Is the trip worth it? In this case, the trip is worth it. It is feasible without the ETJ. I've had this happen before with Bastrop County, and I don't know how many war stories you want to hear, but I've had it happen a couple of times. In Bastrop County, when we created Bastrop County Emergency Services District Number 1 about 15 years ago, we had 3 ETJs that we had to deal with, actually 4. We had Creedmoor, Mustang Ridge. Neither of those cities were actually in Bastrop County, but their ETJ came in, and the city of Austin, which is not in Bastrop County, and then the Bastrop ETJ. Nobody voted in the Austin ETJ, so that wasn't included. It was 2-1, 2 votes to 1, excuse me, in the Mustang Ridge ETJ, so that didn't come in. We came back and annexed later because they wanted the fire service. I'm sorry. I've got bad behavior. But hopefully I've answered that question for you. Probably over-answered it, sorry.
Is feasibility not a subjective term? Is it defined as to how we meet what we call feasible?
Well, it says in B, that's where you make your feasibility determination. If one of the ETJs or one of the cities is not going to be included, will the overall district still be feasible? Feasible is not subjective. If they meet, what the statute says is, if the district is feasible, and you go to B, and will promote public safety, welfare, health, and convenience of persons residing in the proposed districts, the Commissioners Court shall grant the petition. I know nobody likes taxes. You're not voting for a tax increase. You're allowing people to vote on whether they want to vote on a tax increase.
If I think it's feasible.
Correct. But what I'm telling you is
Yeah, no, that's where we get into the problem that I always run into with these things. I've read the statute. I'm supposed to make a determination whether it's feasible. And you're telling me that I have to decide that it's feasible because you've proven to me that it's feasible. But now we're getting into an area where I'm being told that I have to vote for something, and I don't like that.
if I said that, I'm miswording.
Well,
because
that's
what I said is that I believe that they have met the requirements of the statute as to feasibility when you take into what subsection B says, which is you've got to make a determination for each ETJ and territorial limits, and if it's not included, is it still feasible? That's my opinion. There is no case law on that. I'm not telling you to vote one way or the other.
I don't want to get hemmed up in that deal. We're going to have to decide whether we think it's feasible, which is the biggest stumbling block of the whole thing. And not just feasible today, feasible tomorrow, the next day, and next year. Feasible if we can think we can really get a board that's going to work with the people, all of the people, not just Lake Kiowa, all the rural people, everybody, and whether we really will have any input into how this is going to work. That's all part of the feasibility in my mind.
And you can appoint people that are outside the gates, 5 of them, if that's your concern. Or
No, I never said that was my concern.
But I'm just telling you, you decide who's on that board and what their qualifications will be, other than they have to be 18 years of old, a resident of the district, or a taxpayer in the district, or a registered voter or a taxpayer in the district, and 18 years of age, and a citizen of Texas.
But if it were just as straightforward as they meet the criteria, there wouldn't be any reason for it to come to court.
No, I agree with Commissioner Clement. I mean, that's y'all's to determine. I don't think it's as subjective as some may think it is, but at that point, it's still your decision. These folks have put the petition together, they've brought it to you, they've made the presentations, and all they're asking is for is a vote. But if you don't think it's feasible, for whatever reason, then you're going to vote no. And I applaud you for it. I mean, that's your right as a commissioner.
Do we have any idea yet, Pam? I mean, the district hadn't been established. Do we have any idea how many people will be in that district? And I see why you wouldn't go through the exercise.
It's about 4,000, I believe. That's about 2,500 inside Lake Kiowa and about 1,500 outside of Lake Kiowa.
We'll know more once the new census.
Yeah, I get it, guys. Yeah, I understand. And that could
Same
change.
with the demographics.
Yeah. And I see, like I said, why we haven't gone through the exercise yet.
And they also, just for what it's worth, I don't know exactly the whole makeup of the area, but the taxpayers would still get their ag use valuations. They could, if the district offered it, have homestead, those kinds of exemptions. Usually they don't, because everybody's house burns the same, everybody has the same heart attack. But the bottom line is, if you've got an over 65 exemption, you'll get that. If you've got an ag use valuation, you'll get that.
Well, that over 65 exemption is not going to apply to this new entity yet, because it's not, they can't have it because the entity doesn't exist. Is that not correct?
Well, yeah, but if it's there statutorily, it will be there after the district is created. That doesn't change.
They established this district, okay? It has not had, it's not gone before the people or anybody else that the tax freeze will apply.
Well, until it's created, it can't do what the law says it can do.
Okay,
Or
so the
what
law
it's
then
required.
says it can establish a tax freeze.
No, well, yes, it can. There's two different ones, okay? There's different ones. Ag use is statutory. Ag use applies across the board to every political subdivision. Some of the over 65 applies. You can give additional over 65s. You can give a homestead exemption. But the ones that are statutorily already there will apply, the same ones y'all have. I don't know if you give a homestead exemption or not.
Okay, we
School
got a
districts
homestead
do.
exemption for over 65.
That's in addition to the statutory.
I'm sorry.
That's in addition to the statutory one. I don't have them right here in front of me, but there are some that are required by law. It doesn't matter whether you can grant an additional exemption.
Well, if established, will this have to grant an additional, or will it fall under the county?
It would have to grant the additional.
Yeah, and so when we start then talking about appraised values, they will freeze at today's values, not what they froze at when the county froze
Correct.
taxes.
That is
So-
correct. I see
So
what
they
you're
were
saying.
sitting at a $200,000 house, we've got a person over 65.
Mm-hmm.
They were sitting in a house that was frozen at $200,000 7 years ago, or whatever it was, whenever the county established. Now then, that house is appreciated or increased in value, it's a $400,000 house. Right, this ESD's created. That house is on the books at $400,000.
That's correct.
Okay, so if they freeze it now, at whatever the rate is, it will be on $400,000, not the $200,000.
Correct. They would pay $400 a year in taxes if it was at the 10 cents.
And then it's my understanding that if this is created, they're limited on what kind of exemption. They can give like a $25,000 exemption, something of that nature.
For homestead.
Toward their homestead, and that's it. So instead of paying on the $400,000, they're going to pay on $375,000.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure, I thought I had that.
You do. You have it.
We ready to hear from some folks? I mean,
Yeah,
there's-
and I'm here if y'all have any additional
Thank
questions
you,
as we go
appreciate it.
along. Thank you for indulging me. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Bob?
Judge, can I have the approach the bench?
Yes. Did you hear him, Judge?
I'm sorry.
He wanted to hand us something.
Sure.
I wasn't sure you heard him.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Indian Creek's request. The Indian Creek Fire Department has changed the boundaries again on their fire district, apparently to obtain more tax dollars, and their request to create a tax entity to support the ICFD. Creating a new tax entity is not a good idea. Once you create this entity, you will not be able to take it away. The percentage of tax they're asking for is anywhere from 2 to 10%. The reason that the Indian Creek Fire Department is asking for this is to create a paid staff who will be on duty 24 hours. The Indian Creek Fire Department is a volunteer fire department and it's exhausted their volunteers. Most of their calls is to go pick up somebody out of the floor inside Lake Kiowa. 70% of the population of Kiowa is over the age of 65. Their taxes frozen at the age of 65 will be affected adding a new tax, and they will not be exempt and will be taxed based on their present value of their property. There are people at Lake Kiowa that are on a fixed income and will affect them because it is not fair to the persons outside of Kiowa that are bearing a tax load also. There could be ways to resolve this problem. One, Lake Kiowa could have their own ambulance service within the boundaries of Kiowa. Two, people over 65 normally have Medicare, which would bill properly, would pay for most of the ambulance services. Number three, look at how Munster Volunteer Fire Department supports their district. God bless Texas, God bless Cooke County, Lake Kiowa, and the Indian Creek Fire Department.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you
Any
for giving me the
questions?
opportunity.
Thank you. Craig Lampkin.
How many estimated voters Brandy had back in December?
Judge Darden's Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I live on County Road 688, County Road 203, on the southeastern side of the Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department. I'm one of the 20%ers that donates regularly to the Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department. I also donate to North Shore. I'm 4 miles north of North Shore and 5.5 miles from Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department. On those 22 acres, I work every day. Those of you that have acreage know what it's like. I'm 74 years old. I worry about doing something stupid someday and hurting myself or setting something on fire. And I'm hoping that somebody will come help me 24/7. I'd like to be confident knowing that 24/7, someone is there to come help me or put my fire out. It's been said that those of us that donate is what's supporting Indian Creek Fire Department at the time. As you all know, that it requires a sufficient number of donors, but also requires that those donors donate on a regular basis. The reason I support the ESD is that without a regular revenue stream, I don't think they can continue the way they are now. If every district property owner pays their fair share, the district will have the needed financial support and sustainability that's essential for the operation and future growth of our vital emergency services. And not only support the creation of this ESD, but I strongly implore you to put the issue on the November ballot and let the people vote. The last time this came before you in December of 2020, you took no action, and we didn't have the opportunity to say yes or no. You are elected representatives, elected to represent us and decide on many issues, such as all the routine things that you went through today on your agenda, things that we don't need to be involved in. However, there are some things we not only need to have a voice, but also where the law requires us to have a voice. And the creation of an emergency service district is one of those. When I'm asking you to approve or disapprove creating the ESD, we're simply asking for the opportunity to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lampkin. Sam Samuel?
First off, excuse me, I would like to thank you as commissioners for allowing us to come before you today. Let me kind of introduce myself. I'm a U.S. Army veteran and currently president of the board of Lake Kiowa Board of Directors. In a past board meeting, the board acknowledged unanimous support for the Indian Creek Volunteer Department's goal of allowing a vote by residents of the proposed district to consider establishing the emergency services district as was presented to you. The last time I came before you, I told about in 1972, my wife and I had our residency in Oak Ridge North, small city north of Conroe, Texas. After retirement from the FAA, moving to Lake Kiowa in 2007. In 1974, the South Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Department was organized as a rural fire protection district staffed by volunteers. With monetary donations and the generosity of the area citizens and merchants, property was obtained for the first fire station. Over time, the department could not rely solely on donations to support the department. In 1978, an election was authorized and the residents gave their approval for Montgomery County Rural Fire Prevention District Number 8 to be founded. The income from property taxes rather than donations afforded for more capital expenditures to take place. A second station was later added in a subdivision called the Woodlands. In 2009, Emergency Services District Number 8 was established for the fire department, and they were able to hire their first full-time fire chief. Today, Emergency Service District Number 8 serves a 53 square mile area, is a response district with an estimated service protection of over 87,000 people. I share all this information of my past experiences along with the history of the ESC Number 8 to come here today asking that you approve, at the least, allowing the residents within the proposed emergency service district to cast their vote on either approving or disapproving its establishment. It is currently reported that 300 ESDs exist in the state of Texas. I am sure that today you will hear, or have heard, will hear, from those who are opposed or from those that approve of an ESD. I am only asking that you please allow the affected residents to vote and make this decision.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. I'm sorry, but your time has expired.
Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me on.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
David Trudy.
He's not here, but I'm here. It's Cheryl Trudy.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak at this hearing. My name is Cheryl Trudy. My husband and I and our children and 3 grandchildren reside at 4110 County Road 211, which is outside of Lake Kiowa. We're just east of Kiowa. We've lived there for 21 years. I'm here to fully support the need in our area for an emergency services district, and I ask that residents of this district have the right to vote in an ESD election. Up until recently, my husband and I have been rather uninformed, and we assumed many things concerning our emergency services. Living outside of Kiowa, we had no idea that we were totally dependent on the Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department. In our ignorance, we thought that our services were provided by the county and ICVFD was merely supplemental. I suspect there are others in our district like us that just assume that these high-quality services are there if we need them and that somehow they're paid for by our local taxes. We now know this is not the case and that what is there is totally inadequate for the growing needs of our area. It is unfair to a small group of people that have been carrying the burden of financial support for so long. It is even more unfair to the gracious volunteers of ICVFD to carry this critical responsibility with old and outdated equipment, inadequate compensation, inadequate facilities, and very limited resources. Yet as residents, we go on expecting this high-quality support. If these gracious people can no longer carry this load, we have no services. This is not acceptable to us, and everyone we know in the area that we have talked to feel the same. A life is more precious, so any cost to those of us in this district is worth it. We feel strongly that it is time for this to be corrected by establishing an ESD for our area, and residents of this district need the right to vote in an ESD election, and all of us to pay our fair share to support what we expect to be available to us in our emergency needs. Thank you, Judge and Commissioners.
Thank you. Zach Cooper.
Good morning. I'll try not to take up my 3 minutes, but I can't guarantee. Zach Cooper, Chief of Valley View Fire Department. There's no doubt that all the volunteer fire departments need money. We came to you last week with a bunch of numbers and talked about budgets, and we're asking for more money. There are tons of successful, like you said, about 300 departments or 300 ESDs in the state of Texas. There are several very successful ones, very nice equipment, paid people, all that. I'm not against the ESD. As Valley View, here in a few years, we're probably going to be sitting right here trying to convince you to put it to a vote for Valley View. It's been the talk in our department for a little bit, and we're just kind of, I praise Indian Creek for doing some legwork for us. Whether it's the correct way or the wrong way, I'm going to know what to do when it's not my turn to come up here, assuming I'm still down there. What I'm not for is the misinformation, the misrepresentation that Indian Creek Fire Department and Indian Creek Board has put out. I know that the vote is not about the district lines, but even the most recent map that I got this morning is still wrong. As far as the district lines go, according to this map that I got this morning, the old boundary is even incorrect. So I personally know a few different people that live on that line, and they don't know where they're going. They don't know, are we supposed to go to the meeting because we're inside the new line? Are we in Valley Views? Are we in North Shores? They don't know. I can't tell them. So all of the maps that have been published to the public are incorrect. From the get-go, there's been a lot of misinformation from Indian Creek Fire Department from the Indian Creek Board. And until we can be 100% sure that all of this information is correct, I don't think that the ESD is a good idea. But in the long run, we're going to have to go to it. There's not, the funds in that part of the county and in the south part of the county, the support for the fire departments, like we talked last week, is just not as good as it is in other parts of the county. So like I said, in another 3 or 4 years, it's probably going to be us standing up here asking for the same thing. You may feel like you're voting in a tax, and I get that. I'm a taxpayer here as well, a lifelong citizen, and leave that up to the public. If they want to vote into a tax or not, it's y'all's job and y'all's decision to take that to the public. Just as the neighboring department and the busiest department in the county, I just want you to know our opinion and our stance on it. So I appreciate your time this morning.
I have a question, if I could, please. So I was under the impression, and someone from Indian Creek can speak as well, that there had already been a meeting of all the volunteer fire.
You are correct. I could show you the email and show you the agreement. We all signed a map.
Okay.
That's not this map. That's not the map.
Is that this map?
Looking from here, I can tell you that's not the map either. That's not correct.
So do we know where the correct map is?
I have to sign the agreement.
So Barbara has been great to work with since a few months ago that we met, and after all this had been going in place for about a year. She's been great to work with the maps back and forth. We've had meetings with us in North Shore, Harrisburg. We actually had a whole county meeting about it. We all sat down and we hashed it out. We drew a line. We signed our names on it.
Okay.
I haven't seen that map come out to the public yet.
Okay, before you leave, another question. You referenced that there was other things, other discrepancies that needed to be resolved. Is there something other than the map?
As far as between fire departments, the biggest discrepancies aren't worth noting. It's all more of a personal opinion type thing. That's all been resolved. My big thing is that these people, if you look at the big map y'all have displayed for people right now, I can look at it right now and tell you it's not right.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Dino Baer?
Thank you all for having us here today, allowing us to speak. I'm the Assistant Chief of Munster Fire Department. I just asked to come here today and give a little bit of an opinion or reference or some questions from our side of the county. You know, not that we're anything against the ESD for that area. I understand that they're, financially strapped more than anybody else, across the county. We do well in our area, which is great. We have great support. We have great attention to specifics there. We get our job done, and people appraise us for it by building us this big station, keeping our trucks going. But I've had a few questions. Once that ESD is established, and you've got, say, a few paid firemen on there, all of a sudden, do all the volunteers then have to start to become certified firefighters? Because I can assure you that over 3/4 of the staff in the Cooke County Volunteer Fire Department are not certified firemen. They're out there every day giving their life, their time, and their effort. And the more you lean towards a certified fireman, the less volunteers you're going to have, just due to the pure time and everything that it takes to get there. And if the ESD were to go in effect, that'd be fine and great for there, but I just feel like a lot of words that were used in the presentation were power and judging. So that allows a few people to make big judgmental things with very little, the people that you appoint to that group there have, checks and balances are only to you, not to the staff or not to the county people that are paying the taxes. So I was curious about that. And, basically in the end, all the volunteers are volunteer because they want to help their communities, not to tax them and levy codes or laws or fees, or basically, there again, have control over them. You know, we're here to help the community as a volunteer department. And so to me, all this sounds more like we're going to build a city. You know, a city has to, and I understand they have to have a paid department. They have to have somebody there. Well, I'm sorry for the people that can't, you know, if they can afford to pay the tax, they can afford to donate. So I know it's hard to get some people to donate, but it's really hard for us as volunteers to be there to do that. So those are my concerns. I'd hate to see it, you know, go to a countywide thing, which I understand this is not for that. But once you open that door, I believe you just, that Pandora's box just begins to open up to everybody. And before my time is done on the fire department, I'd hate to see us to go that direction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Judge. I don't know if you want to indulge me, but I can answer his questions real quick.
Okay. Let me see if I can paraphrase the question. I think the question is, if this ESD goes in, are any of the applicable rules there apply to any of the other volunteer fire departments?
No, and in fact, the district does not have to have paid staff, and if the volunteer fire department employed the paid staff, then they would not have to be certified through the Texas Commission on Fire Protection. I would hope they would have some training and know what they're doing through the state firemen and fire marshals or some other. It's the same curricula for all of us. I am actually an advanced firefighter. I'm a basic certified firefighter eligible. So I've got all that training, and we train to a standard, and that's the standard we train to. But the answer is no, nobody's going to have to go. It's not going to change the volunteer status. And in fact, one of the things I talked about last night with my client is that if we go to paid staff, we want to hire people from the outside, hopefully who are firefighters somewhere else, to cover that, because we don't want to poach from our volunteers. Because if you start getting paid as a volunteer, absent of a stipend program, which is a whole other issue that I don't want to go down that road with y'all today, then they can no longer volunteer. So if they're off the clock, they're off the clock. Now, we can call them back and pay them, but they will no longer have their volunteer status. So it doesn't change anything, and when we do it through the VFD, it really doesn't change anything. As to the cities, they do not have to have paid fire departments. There's no law that requires that. And a lot of cities don't. Baytown is a perfect example. It's a volunteer fire department. There are a bunch of them out there. So it's not a requirement that and it's not going to change the way they're doing things now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Campbell. Alan Craves. Is Alan here? Good morning.
Just here to, I live out on County Road 220, on property on 220 and on 295, multiple properties. And also have a business in the fire district. I've been on the Indian Creek Fire Department board before. I understand. I've talked to them about this emergency service district for a while. And I'd just like to ask the court today to put it up to a vote for the county and let us vote on it and decide for ourselves whether we want to have this or not. And we'd like to have, a little bit better fire protection and a little bit better equipment than what they have and what they are going to evaluate. We watched Oak Ridge Fire Department dissolve. We've seen some of these others have a lot of trouble, and we're just trying to keep this from happening where we can still have fire medical protection in our county. And that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Randy Randolph.
Hello, my name's Randy Randolph. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts and our opinions on the opportunity for people of the county to get to actually vote for what they need. And there's a lot of us that feel strongly about the emergency service department that we would like to have. And there's lots of reasons. I don't have a bunch of stats for you. I've been part of the community for 8 years. I live on 211, just off 211 on 226, just southeast of the Lake Kiowa area, and also have property in Lake Kiowa. So I'm very much part of the community, and I try to be a part of it in a lot of different ways, but this is new for me. I'm not on the volunteer fire department, haven't been, but I do understand emergency services and the response makes a lot of difference. It's a big thing. We see it on TV more than we hear about it in person, but it's just a matter of minutes, a couple minutes at a time makes a big difference. With paid firefighters in the area that can respond and get there 2, 3, 5 minutes quicker because they're up and ready and not having to drive from home to go get the equipment and get there is all it takes to save lives. So I had just one quick story. I had a buddy that's my best friend for 50 years. He died last week because of 5-minute slow response time for the medics to be in there on a cardiac arrest issue. So just a couple minutes makes a big difference. And I appreciate y'all's time. I hope that you do give us opportunity to vote for the ESD in Cooke County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. Jim Adams.
Your Honor and Commissioners, thank you for allowing us to talk today. I'm retired from Tyler Technologies, and I only say that to say that I've working with Tyler, I've worked with commissioners courts and city councils and local government all around Texas and in the country. So, and say I have a little understanding of government. And to really say I really appreciate your questioning on limited government, because I'm all for limited government also. But in this case, we're just asking that we allow the people to speak and allow the people to determine what's right in that district or what's right for the group of people in that district. So I also serve on the Lake Kiowa POA board, and I just reiterate what Sam said, the board's fully behind it. I get around in the community quite a bit, and everybody I talk to is for moving forward with this voting, allowing the citizens to decide. And then the final thing I wanted to point out, while I'm not a super expert on it, but by moving to an ESD, we believe that we can improve our insurance ratings. In 2015, the Volunteer Fire Department had done things to improve to our ISO rating, which is the Insurance Services Operations Group that decides these things. They moved up to a 4 in the main area of the Lake Kiowa area, but also moved up to an 8B in some of the other areas. And that can significantly improve insurance rates, which can offset some of the costs that we move into this. So by going into ESD, they'll be able to have paid firefighters, which helps your ISO. We'll be able to replace engines. They'll have, if they have additional aerial equipment they can add in the future, that can help. So in this, and then continuing on of their testing and everything that they do. So again, I just ask that you guys allow people to have a say on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Barbara Fox.
Hello, I'm Barbara Fox. I'm the Vice President for the Indian Creek Fire Department Board and a retired nurse. When I was elected to this board 2.5 years ago, they nominated me to be treasurer. I knew nothing about Indian Creek. I'd only just retired out there. And so, but while examining the finances, it became clear that 90% of the finances came from donations and grants. And basically, Indian Creek has been paying for their expenses as they arise. They are not saving for long-term vehicles, facilities, replacement plans. What was also clear was a number of donors and amounts donated were highly irregular and therefore not predictable. In a nutshell, there was insufficient funding to anticipate how to pay for major purchases such as the fire engine, the brush trucks, and facilities, and no clear way to prepare a budget. Can you imagine trying to prepare a budget for Cooke County or even this court without a predictable source of funding, because we don't have a regular funding? 3 of you heard the 15 speakers at the February ESD hearing, And we have heard from others today supporting Indian Creeks, and you'll hear of some more, for an ESD election. If you will allow us to proceed to an election, we will host town hall meetings for residents of proposed Cooke County ESD 1 to acquaint residents with the critical issues facing Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department now and in the near future, while also preparing time for questions and answers. The critical issues of staffing, funding, and continuing to meet the 100% emergency calls. You heard we missed one call in 4 years, and require that we act now. If you allow an election, and if ESD number 1 is established, revenues will not be available to us until 2023. We intend at these town halls to make everyone aware that you only voted for an election. You did not vote for taxes. So, okay? We're not asking you to approve and establish an ESD. We're just asking you to allow the election as prescribed by law. And we really need your consent for this election. And just one correction from one other speaker. The call volume, yes, it was 502, but it's 60% outside of Kiowa were the calls and only 40% inside Kiowa, not the reverse. Thank you.
Thank you. Herbert Knaby.
Thank you all for letting me talk. Numbers, stumbles, whatever I do. At my age, I'm doing a little bit of both. Been before the Commissioners Court a number of times over the last 50 years, all related to fire stuff. And one thing I've found in all those years is that people make mistakes, and they do good. But they find these things out a lot of times after they vote, period. And so I went through the state site for the ESD, and that thing, if you start reading it, will run you nuts because there's about 84 pages of small type in it. I read some of it, and I skipped over a lot of it, but so I came across another site that is that I think could answer a lot of questions that, you know, anytime you ask a question, there's always another question to follow that question because questions make more questions. But it's the Texas State Association of Fire and Emergency Districts. There's some questions and answers on there that will answer a lot of questions that have not been asked here today. So an informed public is a good voting public is what I always thought. So if people will go to this site, they can get a lot of questions answered. Another thing I've always thought is that, what was it? It's not what the building looks like or what it's made of. It's the people that are inside of it is what makes a function, whatever it is, a fire district or whatever function. I'm not for or against ESD 1. However, in Munster, with our department, if that ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Davis Noble.
Good morning. I come to you today because I'm kind of a twofold thing. I have been a victim of fire. I almost lost my house a year and a half ago. Had it not been for Indian Creek, I would have lost that house. They were there in 7 minutes to be able to stop the fire and contain it into my garage. I'm extremely grateful to them and will support them any way I can. Second of all, excuse me, I've served on the board of Indian Creek. I've watched our firemen put in incredible amounts of work trying to keep our equipment running because we can't afford to get the new equipment just yet. They do incredible job with nothing. I mean, they're out there, the firemen themselves are out there working on things, not real mechanics, but they're just trying to keep all this stuff running. Anyway, that being said, I'm mainly here just to ask that you allow this to go to a vote. Let the taxpayers decide whether or not we get to be an ESD. Thank you.
Thank you. And then our last speaker, Janice Gumpin. Hope I pronounced that right.
It's Scoopin.
Okay, thank you.
I live at 4508 County Road 211, outside of Lake Kiowa. As someone who has supported Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department since it was created, I don't think it's fair that only 23% of the service area supports the district by donations, when all of the district gets the, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. As someone who's also had need of the emergency service, I appreciate the quick response time of the Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department, and I support having an ESD election.
Thank you. I have a question of someone from Lake Kiowa. Should this go to vote, and you said you would hold town hall meetings, I'm assuming at Kiowa, would the people outside of Kiowa be allowed to come and?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we would also, we're going to look for venues outside Lake Kiowa as well. And one of the ladies who spoke earlier said we could go to her place, for example. And so we would look to hold at least 3 and maybe more town hall meetings.
But my question is, the ones that are held in Kiowa, would people from outside of Kiowa be allowed to come and attend those?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And on voting day, everybody from around the district is able to come in there and vote also.
Okay.
Yeah, we would make sure of that.
Anyone else want to speak? Okay, it is 11:20. We'll close the public hearing. Agenda item number 11. Agenda item number 12, deliberate and consider possible actions concerning the creation of an emergency service district to be known as Cooke County Emergency Service District Number 1. Commissioner Snuggs.
I'll go last. Anybody got anything they want to say first? Or not?
You want to go last?
Yeah. I mean,
I've got a little fruit for thought here. More questions than answers maybe, but if this is placed on the ballot, is there significant risk to the following? Number one, those over 65 years of age will be subjected to a substantial tax increase. And we discussed this a little bit earlier, but their homes have probably increased considerably in value since being frozen for county purposes. The new entity, if established, may choose to assess and tax at the current value or provide a small exemption. It's my understanding the entity will have limited exemption authority. And I go on to give examples that a $400,000 home with the $25,000 exemption is $375,000 those over 65 would be paying, in addition to their county taxes and any Lake Kiowa fees. So if they live in a $100,000 home, it's $100. A $500,000 home is $500, and a $1 million home is $1,000. Second, those living in closer proximity to the Gainesville Fire Department than the new station proposed by the district. The delay in response time could cost them their home and their life. They're going to be subject to a tax increase with the real chance of slower response times than they currently have. And then I heard something new today that I didn't really think about, but if Indian Creek can provide adequate service, why would they need to contract with Gainesville Fire? That's a rhetorical question, obviously, but and then every taxpayer outside that proposed district Gainesville, Munster, every resident outside that district will supplement this particular ESD because the proposed district will not provide ambulance service. It's my understanding, I think y'all provided the number at one point in time, 68% of the calls that happen or that are responded to are medical related. So 68% of the time, there's going to be an ambulance dispatched. Now, firefighters may respond and they may cancel the ambulance, but initially, there's going to be an ambulance that's dispatched. People outside the district's paying for that service. Ambulance service is the second largest expense to the county, and the new ESD doesn't absorb or reduce any of those costs. If the court believes these are valid concerns, or these concerns are legitimate, is it feasible to place this issue on the ballot and place those listed above at risk? Why might there be a risk? You know, after our last election, how many of us in the room thought we'd have our current leadership at the national level? Any chance they represent the best interest of the majority of the people in the room? Our most recent elections for state rep, state senate, and city council, did they generate adequate representation? A very small number of voters chose who filled those positions. Is it feasible to believe that those outside Lake Kiowa proper will receive the same level of communication as those inside? Lake Kiowa has a captive audience with a publication dedicated to its residents, a controlled access point to limit outside influence, and a central point of contact, notification point. Based on media resources and circulation, can the voters, particularly those outside of Lake Kiowa, be properly educated and motivated to participate or even being made aware it's on the ballot? Voter apathy is a huge issue. Is there any chance the same enthusiasm will exist or can be generated for those opposing outside of Lake Kiowa when those inside are subject to perceive some benefit at someone else's expense? We know historically in gubernatorial races or gubernatorial primaries generate less enthusiasm and produce lower voter turnout than a presidential election. That can play to the advantage of the vocal, well-funded, rather than a majority subject to be adversely affected. Is it feasible to ask literally every Cooke County taxpayer outside of Lake Kiowa proper in this new district to supplement funding for a full-time fire department with no ambulance service when the majority of the services are likely to be for Lake Kiowa based on density and aging population? Because we are going to continue to provide the same ambulance service we provide today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else?
You mean none of us can say anything after Snuggs is done?
No, I'm still collecting my thoughts. So.
Have another chocolate.
I'm sorry, I just had to ask that. The feasibility, I don't know if you can maintain a volunteer fire department with paid coexisting together. Volunteer firemen are a very independent sort of fellow. We already went through all that, which is good. One of the things that I'm concerned of is you'll have a certain number of paid and a certain number of volunteers, and eventually human nature is basically, why am I doing this for free when we could go hire more paid people? And that gets into the feasibility side. The map is wrong. That's troubling because actually, if I remember it correctly, and since I was pretty heavily involved in the discussion when we had the last meeting, part of the problem that I had was the map wasn't right then, and I didn't agree with the numbers and what you were going to pay firemen, and by the time you did the retirement and everything involved, it was going to eat up a good portion of your money. And I didn't think it was feasible then. But we were told we had to make a decision that day to get it on the ballot. I didn't have enough information to really make a decision that day. I would have voted against it. It doesn't matter. We tabled it. That is why what happened is what happened. I appreciate everyone being here. I understand your concerns. I have the same kind of concerns, how we're going to support all the firemen in Cooke County. I've always been, well, I got to phrase this properly. The right to tax ourselves, and I understand that. And until you've been to an Austin hearing where people get up and talk about their taxes, when you go to testify before one of these hearings where they're going to lower the effective rate, they're going to limit to what counties can do, and some person will, elected official will flippantly say, well, it's only a few dollars a year. The people will come out of their chairs and they get very angry because it's their money. Taxing people is a very serious, well, it's not something you just want to say, it's only going to be 10 cents, and we have good intentions. And Commissioner, if you don't like the board that you're going to appoint, you can always reappoint a different one and make them behave better. It doesn't work that easy. It never has, it never will. The map thing is still bothering me. I still don't have enough answers to make me think it's feasible. I don't want to deny someone a vote, but then again, I don't think I'm denying anybody anything. I took an oath to do what I was supposed to do, and as I've read through this question is, and this being the statute, and this question has been put before Allison and Bass, which is supposedly the gurus in everything county and state interaction. If we don't think it's feasible, we have to make up our mind what we're going to do. And right now, I don't, especially with the map issues, I still don't think all the numbers are there. I don't think it's feasible, not long term. It might be feasible for the next year or two. That's great that people have 10 or 15 or 20% in a savings account. But I don't know if you'll do it. I don't know if anyone will do it. I can't make you do it. I think it's a very good business plan, sir, that you have. I understand that. But the ifs outweigh the pluses in my book.
What do you mean by feasible for the next year or two?
Oh, when you get started, sure, it'd be great. I think, yeah, they'll be able to come up with a number. Is it feasible for long term? How long do you, what criteria do you use if it's feasible? Is it a feasible long term? We're talking about in a year or two, you're going to have a new fire district, and it'll have some money, and then you get into buying $200,000 engines in a new facility, and can you generate all the things that are going to come with it? And I know everyone has good intentions, that what are they going to get paid? The paying the commissioners troubles me.
I was just curious what you meant.
No, that's what I mean.
What factors would it change?
And as all of that starts to kick in, it's always been, let's form a new office in the county. I hate to pick on you. Let's get an ESD. Oh, it's great. We'll get an ESD.
An EA.
Yeah, EA. I'm getting my E's mixed up. Let's get an EA. It sounds great. You'll have one person be an EA, and within 2 years, you'll have another office and another secretary and all the accoutrements that go with it. And progression, the tax rate creeps upward. I've never seen taxes go down much. Inflation and new rules from the state and the federal government always tend to cause us to spend more. But we are very blessed in this county to have the firemen that we do have. They all do an excellent job, better than excellent. I do also think this, I find it interesting that people wouldn't donate to a fire department, but they would allow themselves to be taxed with all these other regulations that come with it. You're independent volunteers, you run your own business, and as soon as, in my opinion, go down this road, you now fall under a whole new set of statute laws and the ability to tax people. Now, I don't understand that. Anyway, that's my speech.
Commissioner Arndt?
I've been on a volunteer fire department for 26 plus years, and the hardest thing to do is raise money. The fighting the fire, and that's the easy part. I mean, I said it 15 years ago, man, if we had some money coming in that we didn't have to do that, we'd have people training, we'd have people, I mean, getting the younger kids to come in and try to help on them fundraisers. And I tell, when we do these little deals for the schools and bring the kids in there, I ask them, I go, who would want to be a volunteer fireman? First question they ask, what's that pay? Nothing. Well, I don't want to do that. And that's where we are. I mean, I think our volunteers, the ones we have in Cooke County are awesome. They're very good. But over the years that I've watched, it's hard to get volunteers. I don't know if it's the nature of the school systems or where it's coming from. But, I mean, I know what y'all want to do. And I think I mean, to me, yeah, the feasibility, hey, I know there's an ambulance out there and we pay the ambulance, but that's part of our side anyway. That's really not part of this deal. I mean, and I understand what you're saying, Gary, but, you know, we have a responsibility as the county commissioners. It's our duty. It's actually on him the most, that he has to provide fire service. How we do that and where that money comes from, that's our job to do. But, I mean, I'm for saying let the people decide what they want to do. I mean, that's America. And I know there's probably some legs and stuff in here that we're not seeing that's probably going to bite us or could bite us, but hey, if we say the people want to vote, and they wanted to do it, I mean, out of the people we have here, I think I had 9 for, 2 either way, and 2 against. Man, if we're listening to our constituents, what's the way we're supposed to go?
Thank you.
All the reservation I have about that, Adam, is we're listening to a total of about 400 out of 4,504.
But I mean, that's the way that's how it is usually all the time. I mean, even the vote, yeah, the presidential vote was last year, and I think I have 10,000 voters in my district. I think 1,800.
Yeah,
I mean,
voter
and that's the bad part. People, you know, if you want to complain and gripe about it, and you don't go vote, you got voted. I mean, that's your right as a citizen. So,
well, but there's a caveat to that. See, that's what makes this so interesting. The caveat is when they set this up, just so folks don't go off and do things and have votes like referendums that don't mean anything. This isn't a referendum. I'm just using it as an example. They put the clause in there that we have to decide. And us deciding doesn't always mean if it's a popularity contest, because there's a lot of things. A popularity contest with a group of people you have sitting in front of you. They call that governing, unfortunately. And that gets back to kids not wanting to be firemen anymore. I think that comes more from just society than if that's the truth. I know some areas have lots of firemen. I don't know what causes them to want to or not to. But, yeah, it's easy to say, let the people vote. That's not what the statute says. The statute says we have to decide what to do. And the economic side is what comes out the biggest.
It's sad, our inability to communicate with the public on all issues, it really is. But so often, we'll see an attempt to pass a bond, and people will go vote yes on a bond, and then when it shows up on their Cooke County tax statement, they call, and they say, why'd you raise our taxes? They don't understand the simplicity of, you go vote yes for a bond, it's going to cost you money. So.
Or the flip side of that is I'll never vote for a bond ever. I don't care what it's for, but what if the school's falling down? I don't care. I'm never going to vote for them. I've heard that one before, too. That's a whole different ball of wax. It's just people's minds about taxes.
You got anything to do?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of concern here. I don't like the ideal of unfreezing taxes for people that already have a homestead tax ceiling. But conversely, I agree. I think that the people need to make that decision. Also agree with Mr. Hollowell that unfortunately not everyone will vote. There'll be a very small percentage that will make the determination of whether this ESD is created or not. But in the end, it should be the right of the people to make that determination in my mind.
I always say I'm going to be really organized and write good notes when I give my little speech, but it always ends up looking like this. I'm going to be brief. I do have a question about the exemption. Would an ESD board be allowed to say, hey, if they're already froze in, like Mr. Hollowell's example, at $200,000, their house is worth $400 now, can that exemption carry over into the new ESD? Do you know if that's possible?
I don't know. I can look into that, but I think as far as the statutory ones goes, it goes off when you turn 65. Okay. So it may still apply.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because if it was frozen in, it could stay frozen. That would be a good thing to adopt by the ESD board.
I did speak with them, and I was told that, yes, if the ESD board votes to do that, they can do that.
So that would be a good thing to take a lot of pressure off of things. I'll just be really brief. We're all elected to represent the people equally as we can, and not very often. I think Mr. Randolph might have said, a lot of decisions get made, and y'all trust us to make those decisions. Y'all don't even come and watch us. But very rarely do we get a chance to send a decision to the people, and I believe strongly in that. I'm in the hot seat here. I've lost sleep over this every time it's come to the court agenda because, excuse my language in front of everybody, but I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I'm not for or against the ESD, but our job as Commissioners Court is to decide whether it goes out to a vote of the people, and I believe that it needs to go to a vote of the people. Make sure I catch a few points here. I don't want people to think I'm for taxes. I'm not. We spent 75 hours in budget hearings last week, and I hate to go to the taxpayers and ask them for anything after the way the economy's taken a turn in the last 18 months. So the thought of any other taxes that people think I'm responsible for makes my stomach hurt. But, this would be the people deciding to tax themselves, as was stated. There are 300 of these in the state of Texas. So they're working in places, so it does work. But I took an oath as well as everybody up here to uphold the laws of the state of Texas, and this is, unfortunately, it's a mandate where if these conditions are met, we shall allow it to go to a public vote. That's the way it's stated. And as far as feasibility, as Mr. Hollowell said, feasibility can be a very subjective word. I take it in this sense as a financial feasibility. Would this entity be able to stand up and be feasible on its own? This one would, because it would create even at a very small percentage, it would create a very substantial guaranteed budget every year. It wouldn't be feasible if the district was only going to generate $10,000 in tax revenue. That's the non-feasible part of this. I see it as economic feasibility. Other commissioners might see it a different way, but I see it as economic feasibility. I've heard lots of for or against. It will be an interesting vote, and I do hate the voter apathy. Like Commissioner Hollowell said, not many people will vote probably, but I think it'd be a bigger turnout than we're expected, because there'll be a lot of buzz going through the community on this. Make sure I've got everything. Our job is not to say whether we agree with the ESD or not, it's to let the people decide whether they agree with the ESD or not. So I'm prepared to make a motion. With that being said.
Don't do it just yet.
Okay, but with that being said, if I do make a motion, we do have a mapping issue.
The question is, how can we have a hearing without having the right map, and how can we vote without having the right?
That was my next question. I was going to ask that. So right now, we are not voting on the map. We are voting on it going to a election of the people, and that map would need to be fixed before we can allow it to move forward and approved by everybody, and then that way the people are voting on the correct map.
But you're making your vote on feasibility.
I'm not making it on feasibility.
Well, that's part of it. As you talked about the feasibility, you think it's feasible, and I don't know, if I don't have a bona fide map, I don't.
We have a map, I'm assuming, that has been signed off by all the volunteer fire departments. So what would be your concern, Commissioner, with that map? What would make it not feasible?
It's also attached to our petition.
The map and the legal description that came with the petition is the map, and that is the map we work on. Just because this one's wrong or this one's wrong doesn't mean anything. We look at actually what the legal description was, meets and bounds, and the map that was filed with the petition. And I believe that was correct, but I don't.
We think it's correct, well, we get.
We need to understand, I guess, what the firemen think they signed off on. That would be, Nan, I can't see you back there, but, and I'm not.
Would it be possible for Chief Cooper to look at the signed part that you have your signature on versus what's on the petition?
I haven't seen the petition map.
And it's changed since.
Do we have the petition in court today?
That's the thing, is everybody's got a different map.
Are the petitions in our packet? Okay.
So we haven't seen the petition map.
Hang on, we'll take a look at it.
Don't take that all too lightly either, because, we change lot sizes and different subdivisions and all that stuff, and you don't have the right map. If the tax appraisal district didn't have the right map to go with the right piece of property, it wouldn't be a good thing. It actually is kind of serious.
Yep, got it. Okay, it's in the packet.
But is this the same petition presented to us months ago, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay.
400 signatures with all the GPS points and the map.
Okay. So that was the original map, but now it has varied now, doesn't it? Because it was changed prior to all the departments signing up, or did they sign up and approve the very first map?
When they came back to us, it had been signed.
I mean,
Yeah, no, whenever we tabled it, the
that map needs to be right.
I 1,000% agree.
Can I briefly point something out in the statute? It says if the proposed district, wait, where it is? No, that only applies to 3.3. It's whatever the map is, so we can get out what the map with the petition is and see if that's the right map.
I don't think any of us can answer that, Zach, or somebody's going to have to weigh in.
Whatever's attached to the petition, if it's in your packet there, we probably ought to let them look at it and see if that's the right map.
We signed ours on 11/23. I got a copy of it. But it's a hand-drawn copy, and I don't know when the petition went out, so I don't know if that's the same.
Well, I know, if I remember correctly, the ad that was put in the paper, they told us afterwards the map wasn't right.
Sure, bring it up, please.
I thought somewhere we modified it at some point in time.
I'm not an artist, but that's the second amendment petition that has ETJ in it as well as the original.
That's what's in our packet.
Yeah, is or is not, Barbara? It is or is not the one?
This is what they signed off on. And this is
Yeah.
this equals the blue line.
Can we let Zach
That
come up
appears-
here and look at this, Judge?
Yeah, that appears to be what's in our packet.
Something with the way the paper printed it made an error to the way that it picks up.
Bill, you want to look at that too?
So, she's got the hands on
Okay.
And so how does it compare?
Not the blue line is correct.
Is the blue line correct? That's what's in our packet, is the blue line.
The blue line. And you want to compare? This starts so this, see that? Okay, we got our round way up here. And then you go.
What takes precedence?
Well, y'all have the power to fix the district's boundaries,
The map or the meets and boundaries?
the map that was filed with the petition. Now, you have the power to fix the district's boundaries under the statute, so you could just say it's the map that was agreed to by the chiefs.
Okay. Is there anybody here who's volunteer fire department that's being changed?
Yeah, you can look.
So the only two that are being affected by this are you and Calsburg not here. So to the best of your knowledge, that is,
I'm saying you can say, build a map that they agreed to. Find out.
And y'all let us follow this line. You let us do that, so it looks like that. Down, over, down, there's a little and we go to this
so both of you gentlemen believe that this map is the one that you're going to sign off on? Thank you.
Seems like the paper, when it picked up the colors, made an error to the way that the black and white does.
It was, the line didn't go along.
Oh, okay. Did you have your surgery? You're ready to die. Okay. Is it as good as you thought it would be? When did you have it?
So she was trying to do another bowl.
Okay. You doing
Yeah,
like you didn't have that little set.
yeah, he's a nice guy. He really is. He did mine. I should have. I should have.
Still got to. Yeah, but I'm saying still got
The first one.
Yeah, but the one that is in the packet is correct.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, I'm sorry for the little huddle that we had up here, but real quickly, I'll brief the court of what was discussed. The map that is in our packet is correct. The one that was published by the newspaper is incorrect. There's a portion over by North Shore that was not correct on Valley View. However, the Valley View Fire Department chief did agree the one in the packet is the one that was signed off by all of the fire departments. So it would certainly, we need to republish the correct map to the citizens, but the one in the packet is correct.
Ooh, so the next time we do a subdivision and we have a hearing or changing lot lines, if the map's not right, we're going to do it anyway, and then we're going to publish the correct one at the next meeting. You're going down a pretty, that's not good. That's about as bad as you can get, actually. I mean, I'd have to vote no just on that.
Well, I have to apologize for that.
Well, I understand that, but that doesn't,
And the lines, they were really, really faint, so that's why we tried to darken those lines. That's all it is, so.
But the map file is correct.
This one's correct, right?
Yeah.
it don't work quite like that. You're supposed to have it right in hand, too.
I don't know what to do here, I'm stuck. My motion was just going to be to accept the petition, but I don't want anything in the public eye to look like we're being shady at all.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion. I make a motion that we table this for now and republish it to the newspaper and put it back on the agenda for vote. And the reason for this motion is that I think that it's important that the citizens see the map, so people that are affected, that don't know they're affected, can come to the next meeting and speak to it. I know you guys are frustrated that you've been doing this since December, but I think that we owe it to our citizenship, our citizens, to publish the map and then come back and vote. So I'll make the motion that we table this until our next meeting. What is that date? Okay.
So we're going to have a 3-week gap this time?
We don't have the timeline we had before, though, to get it, to allow them to get it on the ballot. Right, last time.
August 8th.
August 8th.
August 8th.
August 16th.
When?
July 12th.
Okay, and we need 65 days prior to the election, is that correct? I read that somewhere.
They're saying August 16th.
Okay, so we're still in a position to get it on the ballot in November.
I don't want to see any gray areas of anything that's not, you know.
So I'll make my motion again that we table this issue until the next court on July the 12th, pending republication of the correct map.
I'll second.
Have a second from Jason Snuggs. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. This item has been tabled to our next meeting. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So at the next meeting, is it a hearing, or do we need to get speakers, do we need to be prepared to speak, what do we need to do?
I believe because we are changing the lines, and somebody that knows more, please speak up here, that we will need to put it as a hearing again. Now, I don't know necessarily you want to bring everyone that spoke before again. I don't know if that would be up to you. But yes.
Can I ask the county attorney his opinion?
Sure, but I believe we do need to make it a hearing.
Yeah, you have to give public input because you're putting out more information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, we do. We'll have to put it on the agenda as a public hearing. And that way, anyone that did not realize that they were being affected can come and speak.
Transparency, transparency, transparency.
I remember people campaigning on that.
Any further questions?
I said I remember people campaigning on that.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
We did. We did, we're good.
Oh, we did? Okay, there you go. I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I really appreciate it. It's important that we get your feedback.
Can we take a break?
We can take a break. Let's take a 10-minute break, Christian. agenda item will be item number 13, deliberate and consider possible actions regarding Main Street lots. I did pass out earlier the bid from Justin Walterscheid. I think everybody had a quote, or had a copy of it. It's not asking anybody to take any action on it, just kind of give us a ballpark figure of what it's going to take for the design work. Everybody get a copy? Any discussions? Anybody?
I don't have a copy of that for some reason. You sent that via email?
No, it was passed out.
Seems like I saw it in an email from Rick.
You may have. Basically, what's in this, and you guys can read it as well, is the architectural design and oversight by architect, including printing plans to the city and permitting, the civil engineering part of it, the topographical survey, Texas Department of License and Regulations, all of the regulations and regulatory fees, Texas Department of License and Regulations, additional fees and whatnot. Any thoughts on the parking lot?
We need to draw up the request for engineering services to start.
I believe that would be I guess we'll need a budget amendment as well for it.
You didn't give me one, so I don't know what to do.
Here, let me handle that.
We have plenty.
It falls under contract services, doesn't it, Shelley? We don't have to do quotes or bids or anything like that. We got any money in that line item?
What are you talking about?
The engineering work for the parking lot.
No, it all go under the project.
Under what?
It'd go under the project, the 500 line.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have a speaker over here on this end of the room, so we can't ever hear anything.
Gotcha. So do we want to make a motion to go ahead and start that process, or do we just want to leave it on the agenda with no action and continue to monitor it?
We have to draw up the request for engineering proposals, right?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
We can't just go with this. I thought if we're going to do a project like that, we have to go out for bids for an architect.
Not for contracts, do we?
You're talking about a scope of work for the whole thing, and actually, he would create.
That's what he's gonna do.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
For this much money, he would create you what design, whatever it's going to
Spec
take
it
to
out
build
for
it.
weight and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, he'd just create the specification.
Oh,
because he's done to do the topographic survey for drainage and city planning, or permitting and architectural barriers, all ADA stuff,
Yeah.
but pretty much what it would take to build one.
So do we have money for it, Shelley?
No,
Okay, then we'll table it and do a budget amendment.
What would it take to get money for it, Shelley?
is bid specs in here? Bid specs aren't in here.
that's what I was thinking. We had to get the bid specs and all that, start from scratch. I mean, this was just hey, this might cost this, what I understood.
Well, I thought, now, explain bid specs to me. I guess I'm new at this.
She'll have to do that.
Shelley's saying that he's not in his bid, I think what Shelley's saying, he's not saying he's going to actually create the bid spec. Is that what you're saying, Shelley?
He's
I'm reading
gonna design it, but he didn't put together the bid specs.
He doesn't have a line for that in here, no.
Okay.
Architectural design oversight by architect, including printing plans to city for permitting. Civil engineering for drainage, blah, blah, design of parking lot.
Okay, then let's take no action on that one and move on. All right, the next item is item number 14 on the agenda, deliberate and consider possible actions regarding the Crest Building. Anybody have any input on the Crest Building or anything we want to discuss?
When's our pipe getting fixed?
We're going to start construction Wednesday morning. And they're projecting it to be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, each day Friday. They will block the road during the working time, and put a plate over the hole, and open the road back up at that time. Next stop is okay with all of that. So the holdup was the gas company couldn't find the gas main. They are guaranteeing them that they will have it found by close of day tomorrow. So that's why we're starting on Wednesday. We would start today. The gas company says they don't know that line is. So
That's not good.
We don't want no bluey happening.
No, that's not very good.
And with the understanding that the gas company comes back and says we haven't found it yet, they won't start driving the vehicle for that gas line. But the gas company guaranteed them they will find it by tomorrow.
I would think they'd have to find it.
You'd think it'd be a pretty big thing, and you'd think they'd have a map. I mean, how can you lose it?
So there's a tracer wire or something that goes with all the gas lines, and this broke somewhere. So their electronic devices are not found.
Gotcha.
Well, fix a couple of things at the same time.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Technology.
Okay, on the Crest Building, item number 14, we'll take no action. Agenda item 15, deliberate and consider possible actions regarding the annex. Commissioner Hallwell.
I don't have a thing.
Where are we at with the
Weight issue.
weight issue?
And what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, I have some input on that. I'm waiting for the original contractor to set a date for him to come in, and it'll be one day this week. He's trying to rearrange his schedule. And then we will sit down with him, Komatsu, the engineering company that Komatsu secured, and go over all the drawings and the correspondences associated with that activity, and find out exactly what happened and why it happened. So we hope to have some information by the end of the week. Anything else on the annex? And we'll take no action on the annex. Agenda item 16, deliberate and consider possible actions regarding county radio communication system.
We got some stuff to do there. Several weeks ago, y'all designated me to oversee that project to some degree. Based on that designation, I've interacted with numerous property owners and looked at numerous potential sites only to find out that based on elevation or something of that nature, they were not acceptable. So the entire process has been delayed based on the property acquisitions. One of the things happened on our first two sites, both Walnut Bend and Sybil's Bend, there were either ownership issues or pipeline obstructions. So that's required us some additional surveys. Total cost of the survey is probably somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000. So anyway, I would ask us to, I'd make a motion that we ratify my actions to utilize the outside attorney for radio communications projects and my interactions with the survey, because I didn't come back to y'all before each survey and say, hey guys, can I spend this money? And we've actually spent more money with the surveyor than we will with outside counsel. So I would first make the motion and ask that you ratify those actions.
I don't want to ratify the attorney. Because I don't know if we got a good contract. I think we might ought to talk about, I don't know if this is the proper place to talk about that or not.
No, I
since
want to
it's
talk,
kind of-
I want to talk about it. If we're going to talk about it, I want to talk about it in open court. I don't have
Okay, that's
anything to hide.
That's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion to ratify the survey work that's occurred so far and the outside attorney work that has occurred so far on the radio communication activity.
You're asking permission. Go ahead.
I have a second from Commissioner Snuggs to ratify the survey and outside attorney activities that have occurred thus far.
You're asking permission to do the surveys. You went and hired an attorney on your own, and if I read that contract, you want to talk about all of it, it says for cell phone tower. And that's not a cell phone tower. It's a boilerplate cell phone tower contract. And we spending money we shouldn't have had to. And that does trouble me too. It's going to have to be changed. You can't call it a cell phone tower because it's not a cell phone tower.
What we have out there is a draft contract, subject to be reviewed by all parties with the signature block for the Cooke County judge. So there's no attempt to hide anything or circumvent anything from the court.
Other than the fact that you did not get permission from the court like you are to do a survey to go hire an attorney and spend $1,400, and they sent us, and you said that because you wanted someone who was experienced in this, and they set us a cell phone tower. Now, if you don't think a cell phone tower agreement, if you don't think that's important, I remember the Arco pipeline when they put the first fiber optic cable through, people didn't understand. They thought the Arco pipeline people could put a fiber optic line next to the pipeline, and one intelligent person discovered that it didn't say fiber optic line, and they had to stop and move. So those words have meaning now. We're going to ratify it, so we're going to have to change it. And
You're not ratifying the contract, Commissioner. You're ratifying my action to go out and seek outside counsel.
And I don't want to ratify it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second.
That's fine, but I think it needs to be pointed out that you blew $1,400 on a contract that has to be changed.
Blowing it is subjective.
Do what?
Blowing it is subjective. I mean,
No, it's not if it's not correct. We're going to have to correct it. Okay, let's say not very well spent.
And I'm used to you taking a position of public criticism, and I can handle that.
This is not public criticism at all. This is just trying to rectify a problem that I think we have. That's all it is. And you're trying to make it personal, and by no means, you've done a fine job. I helped you work on this tower. But that's fine. You got a little ahead of yourself, I understand that.
I didn't ask every time I went to a surveyor, Leon, before I went to the surveyor. If I'd have come back to you guys every time I went to a potential piece of property and said, hey, would y'all like me to go out there and check an elevation? Or do I need to ask permission to drive the county truck out there?
That's a little bit different than hiring an attorney, sir. You went out and...
Everybody on this court at some point in time has sought outside counsel without coming to the court.
Not that we presented them with a bill. Never.
Well, I think that we in the court, when we gave him the authority to oversee it, I think was the terminology we saw that, we should have probably been more definitive.
All right. So moving forward, what does that mean? Nearly everything else got brought in here.
Yeah.
I assume, of course, that is true. People were running around trying to find property and hire people to find us property. But I was concerned about that also. All of that's supposed to come through court. And if y'all don't think that's important, we do have problems.
I don't think anybody thinks it's not important. I believe it is important.
there has to be some leeway to make some decisions to get things done in a timely fashion. And he's bringing it to ratify to bring it in open that there is no
So
intentional foul.
are we giving someone the ability to to make deals and then we're going to ratify them later?
Well, no.
Well,
I mean,
yes, you are.
I think each individual case is, you look at it, but then in this case, he was given the okay by us to make decisions to try to move forward and get things done, because, I mean, if every single decision came to the court, it wouldn't be you'd be getting done on the timeline that needs to be done. And it's really bare bones right now to get done on the timeline, basically due to these properties.
But I don't think that any one of us should be able to go out and hire someone without having court approval.
And I respect that,
And that's, well,
we can,
it's,
moving forward, everybody will know that. And like the judge said, hey, maybe the guidelines should have been more clear.
Okay, so we're back.
$1,500 on a $4.5 million project, so I didn't think that I overreached drastically. So
Shelley never allows any overreach on anything I do. I'm just making a point. It's not personal. I don't care if it was any one of you doing it. If it was a judge, it'd be the same thing. It's a slippery slope. We need to be careful.
Duly noted.
We agree.
No, I do agree.
Yep.
Like I said, case by case, we figured out.
We all need to be more conscious. So we have a motion to ratify the actions taken associated with the survey and the outside attorney, and a second from Commissioner Snuggs. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1, with Commissioner Clemens voting nay. Item number
Oops,
7.
I'm sorry, we've got some other stuff we need to deal with here.
What else?
We discussed it during budget hearings, but we need to talk about the change order to accommodate the EMS being added to the 700 network. We talked about it last week with the additional radios and stuff. That number, and giving up the credit, that number is $53,159.64. I'd make the motion that, we put that money in the budget to accommodate the additional radios.
Well, I thought you were going to ask them to,
I don't know what's best. We all talked about it last week. What is
right, but
happening?
I thought you were going to
He's supposed to send us a change order. So do we need to wait till the change order gets here?
yes.
Okay. So, but just so there's no surprises, then we can anticipate the change order coming in $53,159.64. Also during budget, we talked about adding $80,000 to complete the ring for the microwave. I think everybody was in agreement on that, and the question was whether or not to go with the microwave or go with fiber. And the question came up, I think maybe, I don't remember who raised the question, maintenance on the microwave. First year is free. Years 2 through 5 is $5,400.
Is that annually or for the whole 2 through 5?
No, that's each year. So, once that microwave is in place, it's going to cost us, what is that, $3,600 for maintenance.
Do what?
So,
And then the cost of the fiber optic was $80,000?
well, it was, the way we broke it out was by the month.
Okay.
And by the month, it was 14,000, Shelley. And of course, that's in the perpetuity.
What are we sneaking up onto on our perpetual cost on this new system annually?
Had that once upon a time.
But we're still gonna do the line between us and Denton, though, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. So,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, I just,
and then if we, kind of hard to break that one out that way, but that's 96. I hate to give you this number the way I'm calculating it, but this will be my best attempt. Looks like, Shelley, I've got, should be 14.4 for the line to Denton.
It's $1,300 a month.
Was it $1,300? It would have been billed to the other.
That's 15.6.
15.6. And then 9,600 for our tower leases. So, zip, $24,000. And that's plus the 80 for the microwave installation.
That's our annual cost of maintenance is $24,000, or operations, I guess would be a better
Let's call
term.
it, yeah, that's our rent.
Okay, yeah.
That's our rent, basically. It's about $24,000. Because you get, Shelley, is that about what you think the number is?
What? How much is each tower the same?
Yes. It's be 400 times 2, 800 times 12, $9,600.
$400 a month?
Yes.
So if we don't do the line, we do a microwave? Are we buying the microwave?
Microwave installation that we talked about last week during budget, we decided that was better than making monthly payments indefinitely, is what I recall. Anybody recall anything different?
What kind of service is that going to require?
Up to 400 meg, or, I'm sorry, what do you mean, what kind of service?
Like,
The electrician to pole, it's like it is, it's going to be on pole.
but I mean, it doesn't require,
There's $5,400 a year maintenance on it.
I mean, but it doesn't require like AT&T or,
No, Motorola's going to make it microwave, as I understand it, from Rice Avenue to the jail.
okay.
That's what everybody thinks.
Well, I don't know how, I don't know how that works.
Does this have to be done today, or can we write this all out longhand and put it on a sheet of paper?
yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stray away. I was just curious if you had some
What?
initial numbers, so. Just
Anyway.
if curiosity killed the cat on that.
So, but,
I know
well,
we've been
first off, I want to be
You
sure
lost
that,
me on the, about the third one where it was about this much and that much and.
well, let me, you know what the towers are, 400 apiece.
Yeah.
Okay.
But let's get it all on a sheet of paper.
Anybody have any questions that's other than the one that we need to do all the math on? Because I don't want anybody leaving here feeling like I didn't
Did you get
share something with them.
the email I sent you about the,
I did, and I forwarded it to Stan.
no, on the generator?
Oh, yeah, good point. Generator, the number changed on the generator from like 15.6 to 16 something, and our local guy wanted, I'm sorry, and our local guy wanted 13,000 up front before he'd ordered. I'm sorry, Shelley.
Did you want to change, do you want to do that? You never answered me.
Is that the email that says, do we want to go?
With Granger. Well, we don't know with
Let's
Granger
see.
yet. when
All right,
we can get
What
it.
we've learned, Debbie went out and done some research. The same generator through Granger is about $3,000 less than our local. And I'm not looking at the math right now. they will not install.
Right.
But just generator to generator, not counting labor installation, Granger was about $3,000 cheaper than an older guy.
Well, but the problem is he can't get it for 6
Oh,
months.
yeah, 22 weeks, and Granger says they have it on the shelf. But September, I'm sorry.
Wasn't that installed?
I'm sorry, Leon?
Wasn't that installed?
No, it's
TNT
16
Electric?
installed.
Which one are we talking about now?
TNT,
TNT's was 16 installed, and the Granger one was,
10,
but who's
not
gonna,
installed.
For the unit.
Who's
So
gonna
that gives you
install it?
$5,000
We'll have
for
to find
installation.
somebody. Who'll do it, Parker or somebody? I don't know.
What's our guess on installing? Is that 500?
but who's gonna service it?
Well, in that price, there's no service, Leon.
On either one?
No, not that I know of. And I'm not looking at it, guys. I mean, obviously, I'm.
Well, but do we need it sooner than 24 months?
that's the question.
6 months.
It's, even at that price, it's not available for 22 to 24 months.
Right.
Oh,
24
months, that's two years.
Weeks, I'm sorry, weeks.
Sorry.
Weeks or months?
Weeks.
Okay,
Weeks.
that's a little
I
different.
misspoke.
And then for Granger's like 4 or 5 weeks. Delivery. Yeah. Granger's was considerably, and I'm not.
And Granger's is the $10,000.
Yes.
Unit to unit, it's my understanding, not looking at it, that, trying to keep all this in your mind is a little challenging. But unit per unit, it's cheaper, just for the unit.
Got the switch box and all that on it, automatic switch. Just hope,
That's a good question, and I can't answer.
I mean, that could be
No, that's several thousand.
several $1,000s right there.
Those automatic ones.
My only concern about the local, in reality, is the delivery date. That's what got me concerned about them. I mean, obviously, we've used them, they're great, and the problem comes in is they want $13,000 up front, and we typically don't pay
That's just a,
without receipt.
that's a,
And I thought I'd make that phone call, because I was kind of surprised, but operations manager had made that comment, I guess, so. I don't mind, I'll make the phone call.
So, you buy one from Granger, they have to be serviced and checked. You want them to be automatic and start and all that like they're supposed to. Who's gonna take care of that?
I don't know if you got the price on, I haven't seen it.
But it's not
Follow
in
where
the
I'm
price that we have, correct?
You see where I'm going?
It's not
You buy
in the
local
price that you
TNT,
have, it's not in the
take care of
quote
it.
that you have.
And generator that doesn't work,
Maintenance,
Isn't worth anything.
it's not in the, maintenance and service is
so you're
not
gonna
in
call
that quote.
TNT and say, come and fix our Granger.
She took TNT's quote.
I understand. Okay. You have a generator. It has to be serviced from time to time. Bad weather hits, stupid thing doesn't start, which happens from time to time in places. We've had it happen in the county a time or two, I believe. So you call, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? You're going to call Granger. They're not going to come. You're going to call TNT. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I was just giving an option.
I know.
My concern was that it was going to take 6 months to get.
Yeah.
Is there somebody else that would service it for us? I don't know anything about generators. Who? I'm sorry. Are they local or?
Well, the point I'm making is you're.
You could probably get a service agreement with TNT.
Maybe, I guess. I don't know.
That's the question.
But that's fine, but that's above that's not what they bid, and that's not what Granger bid, so.
Right, yeah, that's.
In my way of thinking, guys, we need to figure out what the installation cost would be for the one from Granger. I'm not as concerned about it being serviced, but I am concerned about what the difference is between, I'm assuming the TNT is turnkey, installed, switches,
the whole 9 yards.
Adam raised a good question too, Judge, on does it provide the switches? Shannon and I had a conversation because they wanted the money up front, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just, generators. I don't have a problem going off and talking to T&T and say, hey, you really want to do this?
We can't give you the money up front.
Yeah.
We can't give you the money up front. That's the issue.
That's the issue.
Okay, but everybody,
I'll call Tim after a while.
okay.
Because I think there is a value in having a local company that's right here with us that will take care of it and do possibly a better job.
Well, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have a question though. Gary, you made a motion. Are we disregarding that motion? You'd made another motion after the one about ratifying the actions, but I couldn't understand you. I didn't get a vote.
The other one was for, I believe, the additional money, the $53,000.
Well, and I needed to withdraw that motion because we can't approve that change order until change order gets here.
So you're withdrawing it?
Yeah, that's the motion you're talking about, right, where I made the motion that we go ahead and take care of the 53,000? Yeah.
All right, I just won't put it in there. I just want to
So-
make sure.
Okay. And then it's not a motion, I guess it's an action that Gary will go back and discuss.
Yeah, I'll talk to the main man and see. But now, if he says we got to have that up front, what's that do to your decision?
That's when we talk to the auditor.
What?
I said, that's when we talk to the auditor.
To give the money up front?
Yeah. Well, you're going to pay them one way or the other.
That's weird that we're loaning credit, and that's
Well.
against the Constitution, so.
Get Parker Electric to what? Give us a quote. Give us a quote. Do that.
Some of that is who is a Generac, if we want a Generac product, who is a Generac distributor for this area. And that's out of Denton. You know, our local guys doesn't even show to be a Generac distributor.
But I'm convinced that Commissioner Hollowell, with his superior, convincing way, will convince them to let us get
it right without $13,000. But that might be considered a negotiation, you understand?
Yeah, but we talked about it. You're starting to understand. We discussed it right here.
Okay, anything else on the radio communication system? All right.
No, I think I'm good.
We'll move to item number 17, deliberate and consider possible actions regarding various grant funds.
I have nothing new on any of them.
Okay, thank you.
That's wonderful.
Item number 18, executive session. Do we have any need for an executive session? Did we have anything? I didn't have anything this. Okay, let's take no action on the executive session this time unless someone else disagrees. We'll talk about future agenda items. Is there any agenda items that we need to have put on the next agenda for July the 12th?
Obviously, the ESD.
Yeah, the ESD.
What became of the constables?
They're next. I don't know where they're at, but
Okay.
are they sitting outside?
I thought that was after lunch.
Oh.
You what?
Okay, if there's no other item other than the ESD for future agenda items, that is the next agenda item is the convening day 4 of FY 2022 departmental budget hearings. And those are Constable Precinct 1 and Constable Precinct 2. You have the, yeah, we'll give them 5 minutes and then.
You stop recording.
Yeah.
Judge, I got to go.
Okay, thank you.